landmines? Oh, and she's so cute! Squiggly Wiggly!
Hello and welcome to WedSNESday! So, much like last week's episode of WedSNESday, I played the prequel on the NES and I found it a bit cantankerous. Well, actually, Castlevania 1 really cheesed me off, but I adored the sequel. But the question is, what do I think of Castlevania 4?
So Castlevania 4 starts out like the first one. We're invading a castle and we're killing spooky stuff with our whip. And it's super powerful, not to mention everything here is a visual treat. Look at me kill this guy. I just turned that guy into a car park. It feels pretty good to kill stuff with your whip. It's got an amazing range, the death sound is great, and best of all, you can make your whip go all squiggly wiggly. Squiggle, 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 squiggle. Squiggly wiggly. Get wiggled!
Let's just call the review here. It's already a perfect 10 since it's got that squiggle wiggle whip.
So, the music isn't too amazing. As I mentioned, the graphics are great. I love seeing all the old enemies with a coat of 16-bit paint. And honestly, these first levels are easy. Maybe too easily. What happened to the merciless, abusive stepfather Castlevania that I'm used to? Well, soon I run into a boss, and the bosses are interesting. They are dangerous, so you need to deal with them super fast. The downside is that they all have super cool designs. I wish they were just a tad easier and a tad more durable. That way the fights could be longer and I could appreciate that design. Because right now, all I can do is make sure that my character is in the way of any of their attacks, but also making sure that the foe is getting a whip through their eyelashes. The next area isn't too memorable. It's like a giant bog, so it has shrubs and horse heads, but you whip out your whip, go all squiggly wiggly on them, and then you move on. Whoa, 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 keep your hands off me. You need to learn about personal boundaries, buddy.
Let's go.
Whoa, no touchy. No touchy. No touch.
So pretty soon I ran to Medusa, and then I introduced her and her little snake buddies to the business end of my whip. After that, I jumped on into a canal. So, I'm gonna be honest, this was my favorite level of the game. The level is super easy, but you see there's a slight little current moving you around. Not to mention, it is gorgeous. You can see the water rushing against Simon's legs. But the best part of all is that when you're moving forward, you can stay in squiggly wiggly mode. Get squiggled on! The next level was a cave. I really liked the Mudmen. It was a lot of fun to break them into pieces. Not to mention it felt pretty good finding these secrets on my own. I gotta say, hitting all of these candles in one, oh, it feels like heaven.
Now this is classic Castlevania.
Despite this, it's still much funner than the original game, and it feels a lot more my fault since I can actually control Simon in the air. Oh, and I have the squiggly move!
The bad side is, it doesn't really stop me from getting batted off the cliffs, but it is still so much fun!
So, as Egoraptor mentioned in his sequelitis episode, the emphasis on sidearms in Castlevania 4 is really downplayed. You know, why bother chucking a Molotov cocktail at the ground when you can just wiggle everything to death? And when you only use the whip, you build up a lot of hearts. Millions of hearts! And that helped me a ton when fighting the boss. Look at this! Easiest boss ever! You just fill the sky with axes and he is decapitated! You know, Ghouls and Ghost Hydra was a complete pushover as well. Alright, now we enter the castle levels, and it's a pretty standard affair. You go through and you whip some skeletons, and then you fight a boss without a body. And it's a pretty tough boss, but for really lame reasons. So every time you hit this guy, some debris comes down from the ceiling, and it comes down really fast. More than likely, you're gonna take the damage from it. So when you hit him, you can either try and fail to avoid the rocks, or you can swing your whip at him again since more than one volley of falling stones won't come onto the screen at a time. I didn't like this fight. But I did like the next stages. It's 1991 and we have new hardware, let's really push it, guys! So, much like ghouls and ghosts, they rotate the room around, and it's kinda cool to hang onto this ring with your whip while it does its thing. Then you fight off a slew of Medusa heads, then you hang onto the ring again, and then you can walk on to the next area. And this is trippy! Cool, but also trippy. I like this level, and not only for its graphical trick, but the trick with these blocks. See, the ground is falling out from under you, or at least you think. You see, it wasn't until I reached the end of the stage that I realized there's no danger here. The blocks will only fall if you're more than 5 spaces away from them. So there is a real sense of danger that lends to an even greater sense of accomplishment when you win, but there never is any real peril. Then we fought the boss, and once again they're using SNES trickery for some reason. I'm not sure why, but the boss was not a sprite, but he's actually part of the background for some reason. But it's still fun to pummel him smaller and smaller until he's nothing. Next level, pretty cool. I like the enemies on this one. You see, it's just a bunch of 19th century aristocratic ghosts. I do say! They never outright threaten me, you know, it just seems like they're going about their ghostly lives, and then like a jerk, I decide to stab them. However, every time we touch, I feel pain. They hurt me, so, you know, I tried to avoid touching them, and I had to stab them with my whip. However, the boss was cool. It's just a lovely, ghostly couple ballroom dancing.
You know, the movie was good, but it would have been so much more better if Anastasia decided to pull out a whip and go to town on those homies.
The next zone was a library, and there's this vertical section I think should have been pretty hard, but I simply decided to jump like a madman and got to the bottom of it lickety-split. One weird part, though, is right here. These books! Am I the only one who feels that they are, like, way out of place? Throughout the entire game, there's been a dark, moody, very atmospheric, gothic color palette. And then they made these books lime green! Honestly, it just looks like it was an asset taken from a much brighter game. Okay, and then what happened? There was a cool section where I was jumping on a chandelier, and then, oh, a boss fight! Another one that I wish was longer, but was fun nonetheless. This big old knight dude starts swinging his axe. It's fun to avoid, and once you do enough damage, the axe is destroyed right out of his hand. Then he switches to a noble shield and a sword. Cool ideas here, but he didn't get the time that he needed to shine. Shine in armor. Cause he's a knight. I'm falling! So I land in the next level, and I gotta say, overall, it's pretty lame. It was just very reliant on instant death traps. It annoys me that just barely grazing it from the side is the same as it coming square on your head and just snapping your spine. They're not the same. But the boss was pretty neat. It was a Frankenstein, and he just spends the whole fight just throwing science at you. Boom! There's some fire science. Ooh, and this one's some clone science. But once you kill him, instead of exploding into bones like the skeletons do, he explodes into science. Boom, 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 boom. Science! The next level was far from unoriginal. See, the rest of the game has been like dark, swampy areas, and there's a lot of this castle-y stuff, but this area? Gold!
Mountains of it.
It's like the Cave of Wonders. You can hop on top of these chests, there's mounds of coins everywhere, it's just a blast! Heck, even the skelly men here have a gold-like appearance. Wow, this seems kinda deep.
I drowned in gold. Best death ever!
Even the boss was an incredibly unique idea. Like most of the enemies in this game have been classic horror story creatures, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the boss here was a bat made of golden coins. I love the design of this guy, and he took a lot of hits so I could actually take in and appreciate his design. Now, with the cool boss defeated, we are nearing the end of this journey. And we have a vertical stage that actually wasn't very challenging. So the whole time you're going upwards, hopping on these gears to get to platforms and whatnot, but the whole time the enemies are above you. So before you can even consider going up to their level and having a fair fight with them, you just send your whip through the floorboards to dismember them. The boss, I feel, was a missed opportunity. Now, the setting was pretty neat. As I mentioned, you were jumping on top of these gears to reach the top. And when you get to the top, you realize, oh, it's a clock tower. The gears actually served a purpose. And then you can walk on the clock hands, and this is where I got a little disappointed. Wait a minute. You can do the chandelier thing, and you can do that spinny 3D part, but you can't have the clock hands actually move during the fight? Lame. Wouldn't it be so cool to have like a flying enemy, and you have to navigate the clock hands while you fight him? But no, they just decided to go for a mummy. Toss the holy perfume at him, and he goes up in smoke. The next level was another vertical one that relied mostly on death traps, like this annoying saw blade thing, and then you need to go up these blocks and try not to get skewered on the death spikes. Then you run from some bats on a collapsing bridge, and at last, it's time for a boss rush. And I gotta give major props to 1991 Konami, a boss rush, but none of them are cheap repeats that you've already faced before. 3 completely new bosses that are wildly different in difficulty. My least favorite one is this first guy, easily the hardest boss in the entire game, that requires you to be perfect for the whole fight. I probably had to reset against him over 50 times. I hate him and his bird mother. The second boss was probably the easiest in the game outside of that Hydra that I just filleted with the axes. Just stand here in the corner where he can't seem to hit you and then smack him whenever he gets too close. The third boss was pretty tough. At first I couldn't find a way to destroy him or his attacks. He was incredibly painful to fight. But once I tried hiding in this corner, and then I found out that I could destroy his scythes and him pretty easily. Then he went over here, and so I went out and then I kind of ran against his magnetic thing, and then I was smacking him a couple of times, and I beat him. Now all that remains is old Drac. Now the Dracula fight is pretty good. So he appears, and then you need to send out a cross to smack him across the face, while he shoots out this energy ball that you need to destroy. And do you want to know how you destroy it? Well, you hit it with the whip to break it into 4 smaller balls. And to destroy those 4 smaller balls, Squiggly Wiggly!
A fight in which you are required to get squiggly with it to avoid taking damage? This is a perfect fight!
You do that for a couple of volleys, and then he'll drop some meat for you to eat up, and then it gets real. Now, as I mentioned, the soundtrack for this game has been rather lacking, but the end of this game was epic. This awesome remix of the first song comes in, and Dracula's teleporting around you and shooting these death beams, and you need to try and get hits in. One slight complaint is the difficulty and how to get around it. So when his final form appears, he shoots down 4 beams, and they just hurt so much they're a bit too tough to avoid, unless you pause. When you pause, you can see where they're gonna land, and it becomes too easy to avoid. I did feel a little cheap beating the boss like this, and pausing interrupted the sick music, but hey, I beat the game.
So, that's Castlevania 4! Much better than the original, absolutely. I had a phenomenal time with this game. Is that because I used the Squiggly Wiggly at every moment humanly possible? Yes, actually, that is 100% the reason it was much better. Next week, we will be looking at Contra 3, The Alien Wars. Something tells me there is going to be a very disappointing amount of Squiggly Wiggly.